Certain people believe that every person, no matter how immoral, has some good in them. However, the world of horror says otherwise. The genre often deals with villains who indulge in every depravity or just want to watch the world burn. But as hard as it is to believe, the worst of the worst can actually have a moment where their conscience gets the better of them. So with that being said, I'm Jem from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 more times horror movie villains chose not to be evil. Number 10, A Gift for Cindy in Silent Night, Deadly Night. The Christmas slasher centers around an orphan, Billy Chapman, who was devastated after his parents were killed by a criminal in a Santa suit. After growing up, Billy tries to make ends meet by getting a job at a toy store, but when he's forced to work as a shopping center Santa, all the horrible memories flood back to him, causing him to snap. Billy rampages across the town, slaughtering the locals with knives, hatchets, arrows, antlers, and even Christmas lights. Though Billy is the victim of a childhood tragedy, there doesn't seem to be anything redeemable about him, except for one moment, kind of. When a young Cindy mistakes Billy for the real Father Christmas, it looks like she's gonna be his latest victim. However, he asks her if she's been naughty or nice, and when she states the latter, the jolly old Saint Nick gives her a Christmas present, which happens to be a bloody box cutter. It mightn't be the most appropriate gift for a child, or anyone for that matter, but this moment stands out since it's the only time Billy refuses to take a life. Number 9, Jigsaw gives his child's murderer a second chance in Saw 4. Any horror veteran should know Saw's recurring antagonist, John Kramer. After being diagnosed with a terminal illness, the engineer turned serial killer came to the radical belief that because people only appreciate their life when it's about to be taken away from them. This epiphany compelled Kramer to force deplorable people into horrific games to test their will to live. Despite the fact he mutilates his victims, Kramer adamantly believes that what he's doing is for the greater good. Though he's perceived as a monster by the authorities, there's one moment where Kramer proves to be far more forgiving than the average person. In Saw 4, it's explained that Kramer's wife suffered a miscarriage after a junkie, Cecil, shoved into her pregnancy belly. After killing Kramer's unborn child, nobody would blame Jigsaw if he forced Cecil to endure a slow and antagonizing death. Instead, Kramer made Cecil take part in one of his tests, hoping the experience would rehabilitate him. True to his word, Kramer spared Cecil after he completed the trial. Too bad Cecil killed himself by accident seconds after, meaning John Kramer's act of forgiveness was actually for nothing. Number 8, Nemesis joins the hero in Resident Evil Apocalypse. Paul W.S. Anderson's Resident Evil franchise is filled to the gills with reprehensible villains like Albert Wesker and Dr. Isaacs. However, if there is a single entity that you'd expect to be wicked to the core, it's gonna be the big bad of Resident Evil Apocalypse, Nemesis. First off, just look at the guy. Armed with a rocket launcher and a minigun, this uber zombie lays waste to anything he lays his singular eye on. Secondly, he was designed to destroy his creature's enemies, making him the most efficient killing machine possible. He may be an ugly son of a gun with a hefty kill count, but Nemesis proves to not be all bad. Just as the lead heroine, Alice, is about to finish Nemesis off in the third act, she realizes he's a mutated version of her old friend, Matt. As this moment of clarity reawakens Matt's personality, allowing him to take control of Nemesis's body. He then turns on his creatures, giving Alice and her friends enough time to escape the zombie-filled city. Matt took many innocent lives as Nemesis, but he made the right decision when it counted the most. Number 7, Leatherface does not kill Stretch. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Tobe Hooper's groundbreaking Texas Chainsaw Massacre portrayed Leatherface less like a human being and more like an embodiment of evil. While the chainsaw-wielding loon is placing his victims on meat hooks, whacking them with hangers, or burying his blade in their guts, it's hard to imagine that there's a shred of decency inside of him. But in the sequel, Leatherface proves to have a softer side. This time around, the masked maniac and his cannibalistic family target radio DJ Vanita, Stretch Brock. After bringing her to their hideout, Leatherface's brothers, Drayton and Chop Top, command him to kill her. However, after Leatherface develops feelings for Stretch, he finds himself unable to carry out the order. And when Drayton comes looking for him, Leatherface holds out a dismembered face, pretending he's done the deed. He then places the face over hers, hoping to hide her from his tyrannical brothers. And just to prove he's not all bad, Leatherface treats Stretch to a dance. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 was not as iconic as its predecessor, but it did humanize one of the genre's most vile villains with this one scene. Number 6, Shepard keeps his word in Would You Rather. Would You Rather revolves around Iris, a woman desperate to pay for her brother's leukemia treatment. Suddenly, mysterious entrepreneur Shepard Lambrick invites Iris to a party game where she can win a small fortune. At first, Iris believes her prayers have been answered, but unfortunately, it's not that simple. After arriving at the gathering, Shepard pulls a squid game, revealing Iris and her opponents will be playing a dangerous version of Would You Rather. The game involves torturing one another, stabbing themselves, or pulling off body parts. In the end, Iris faces off against Lucas, who she shoots and kills. Surprisingly, not only does Shepard hand over all the money he promised, but he reveals he's already located a bone marrow donor for Iris' brother to ensure the treatment's successful. Shepard is a sick son of a gun, but must be commended for following the rules of the game to the letter. Number 5. Jason spares a little girl in Friday the 13th, Part 6. Jason lives. In Friday the 13th's early days, Jason Voorhees mainly targeted teens and outright jackasses, but as the franchise progressed, the mute zombies broadened his scope, exterminating pretty much anyone in his proximity. Over the years, Jason has over 150 on-screen kills, although a handful have survived an encounter with Jason. The idea that Jason would voluntarily spare someone sounds absolutely ridiculous. But there are exceptions. For example, in the 6th installment, Jason finds himself back to where it all started, Camp Crystal Lake. As he trudges through a room of sleeping campers, he notices a little girl staring at him. As he looms toward her, the girl shuts her eyes and begins praying to God to protect her. The campers' plan seems to work, as Jason leaves her to be and goes off to torment someone else. Since Jason's exit coincides with a police car appearing outside, it is possible he only spared the little one because he wouldn't have time to get away from the authorities. But since Jason has never had any qualms with running away before or since, it's quite possible he just didn't want to kill an innocent child this time. Number 4. Thomas Sharp abandons his scheme in Crimson Peak. Up-and-coming author Edith Cushing is asked by a businessman, Sir Thomas Sharp, to invest in his invention. While working on the proposal, they fall in love and get married. After moving into the Sharp mansion, co-owned by Thomas and his sister Lucille, Edith is tormented by a scarlet ghost, warning her that she's in danger. When Edith learns Thomas has wed 3 other rich women, she suspects he intends to kill her and claim her wealth. Although that was the plan, Thomas has a change of heart when he genuinely falls in love with Edith. While speaking to Lucille, it's revealed that they are in an incestuous relationship. Knowing that Lucille still intends to go along with the murder plot, Thomas vows to stay with his sister if she spares his wife. Refusing to listen, Lucille stabs her brother/lover to death. Despite being dead, Thomas still tries to make amends. During the climax, Lucille pursues Edith, ready to hack her to pieces with a cleaver. Just as Lucille's about to impale Edith, Thomas's spirit appears, distracting her long enough for Edith to kill her. With this complete, Thomas vanishes, implying his soul is finally at rest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're there, drop us a like, share, and subscribe too. Number 3. Abigail stands up for Joey in Abigail. In this supernatural horror comedy, Joey, Lambert, and several other criminals kidnap young ballerina Abigail, hoping to ransom her. But when several crew members wind up dead, they discover their abductee is a sadistic vampire. What makes Abby so terrifying is how much she enjoys toying with her victims. Even though she could butcher them all with ease, she endlessly taunts them, making them think they have a fighting chance. She also informs the criminals that she was the one who hired them for the so-called kidnapping, just so she could personally end their lives. Even though the titular villain sounds unforgivingly wicked, she proves to have a sliver of goodness in her. When Lambert is vampirized, Abigail realizes he's too strong to fight, forcing her to team up with Joey. After the pair eliminate Lambert, Abigail thanks Joey for her help and allows her to walk free. This nice moment is suddenly interrupted by the arrival of Abigail's dad, a tyrannical vamp called Lazar. But when Lazar orders his daughter to suck Joey dry, Abigail refuses, emphasizing that Joey stood by her side when she needed him most, which is something her father has never done. Lazar respects Abigail's wishes and lets Joey leave. Number 2. Anthony uses his powers for good in Twilight Zone, the movie. Over the years, the Twilight Zone has created plenty of memorable villains, including Talking Tina, Pip, and the Gremlin. And of course, who could forget about Anthony? Although Anthony from the Good Life episode seems like a sweet little boy, he's among the scariest characters in the series. As such, it was no surprise when the episode was remade for the 1983 film adaptation. The segment opens with timid teacher Helen accidentally knocking Anthony off his bicycle. After taking him home, she meets Anthony's family. Though they are welcoming and all smiles, it's clear as day that they're petrified of the boy. Over time, Helen learns Anthony can warp reality and uses his powers to kill anyone who displeases him. After he murdered his parents, he kidnapped locals and forced them to pose as his family and keep him endlessly entertained. When his family defied him, Anthony punished them by taking away their mouths or erasing them from existence. Believing Anthony's volcanic temper stems from feeling unloved, Helen becomes his surrogate mother and vows to teach him to never misuse his godlike abilities. In the final scene, Anthony turns a barren landscape into a beautiful flower-filled meadow, affirming he will only use his power for good from now on. And number 1, the aliens give Brin her life back in No One Will Save You. Brian Duffield's dialogue-free sci-fi flick follows seamstress Brin, who's unable to move on from the death of her childhood friend Maud. Not only that, she's despised by the townspeople for some inexplicable reason. Just to make things worse, a grey alien invades Brin's house on one night, intending to abduct her. Despite the extraterrestrials' telekinetic powers and advanced technology, Brin proves to be astoundingly resilient and successfully kills it. While trying to warn the locals, she learns the Greys have mind-controlled everyone in the area with a parasite. Refusing to let Brin escape, the aliens do everything in their power to capture her. Although Brin pulls up one hell of a fight, she's inevitably sucked into the aliens' flying saucer. After scanning her mind, the invaders catch a glimpse of Brin's memories. Through a flashback, they learn that she had a heated argument with Maud as kids, which led to Brin fatally striking her with a rock. This incident left Brin resentful and depressed. Despite killing several aliens, the Greys return Brin home, believing she's suffered enough. On top of that, they leave the parasites inside the locals, forcing them to be nice to Brin forever. Even though the Greys could have punished Brin for her actions, they instead gave her everything she ever desired.